and welcome to the internet's best podcast about Fred Olin Ray, at least according to the actor that plays the direwolf in Direwolf. As always, I am Kennedy, and across from me is...
I'm Meredith!
All right, and today's podcast about Fred Olin Ray movies is actually not about a Fred Olin Ray movie this week. What movie are we watching, or did we watch this week, Mare?
We watched Assault on VA-33, which was made in 2021 by Christopher Ray.
Christopher Ray, sometimes is credited as Christopher Olin Ray, sometimes credited as Christopher, whatever his middle name is, dash Olin Ray. So despite this not having, I don't think Fred Olin Ray's name is in the credits anywhere. I don't see Retro Media, Fred Olin Ray's company. This is still a very Fred Olin Ray movie. It's got so many people we've seen before. It's got so many kind of locations we've seen before. So I'm not sure exactly where to start here. I think the first thing we need to talk about is this is one of those movies that probably could be called a mockbuster, but not quite in that shameless Asylum way. So, Asylum is the company that when Transformers comes out, they make Transmorphers.
Oh.
So it's confused grandmas rented from the Red Box. But this movie is Assault on VA-33, which is a title evocative of Assault on Precinct 13, which
is it?
Meredith does not know.
Okay. I have never heard of it.
So Assault on Precinct 13 was a John Carpenter movie that he made in 1976. It's pretty much his first real movie. He made Dark Star, which was like a continuation, like kind of an expansion of his student movie. And he made Assault on Precinct 13 in 1976, and then he made Halloween in 1977.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's like this kind of nasty, mean movie where cops and criminals have to team up to defend against this invading horde of a worse gang. That's kind of a simplification, but yeah.
Okay.
And then they remade that movie, but they remade that movie in 2005 with Ethan Hawke and Ving Rhames.
Okay.
So it's not really close enough to either of those in terms of time to be a mockbuster of that, especially since the remake, I think, grossed about $35 million on a $30 million budget. So it really didn't set the world on fire. It probably ended up losing the studio about $25 million when all is said and done.
Oh.
How would you describe this movie, Mare?
We did a Die Hard.
We did a Die Hard. This is exactly a Die Hard. This is Die Hard in a big air quotes VA hospital.
Yeah, we did a Die Hard, which I was very proud of recognizing because it helped me to set expectations for what was going to happen. It did break my brain a little bit because I think of movies in two buckets. And
just two?
For this metaphor, for this comparison, two buckets. Good movies, bad movies. And honestly, everything in the good movies are movies that I enjoy. You know this.
Okay.
I've called many movies good that you're like, what's wrong with you? That's fine. I understand.
Yeah.
Bad movies are movies that I don't enjoy. And then also movies like Fred Olin Ray's where we understand that these are not going to be the polished films. Yeah. This movie was like an uncanny valley situation for me. I was like, I recognize that actor. That actor's from Boondock Saints. Why is this happening?
There are the acting budget of this is out of control. I have so many actor notes in this because there are so many people in this movie that we know from stuff. Not to spoil for the end. I find this movie ridiculously entertaining, but it's also got samurai cop levels of sense making where things are just such a jumbly mess in terms of trying to create a cohesive narrative. I think it's edited within an inch of its life, too. Anyway, let's get to the actual movie, because we can talk about an example of this in the opening scene, which is also the climax of the movie.
Okay. We open, and it's a hostage situation. I didn't catch the characters' names in this one because it didn't seem super important, so I'm going to use some nicknames. You'll get it.
Yeah.
Boondock Saints is pursuing a guy who's holding Boondock Saints' daughter hostage. Okay, the bad guy is on his way to an airport hangar. There's a personal plane in the background, and he's trying to get to the plane, and Boondock Saints is like, you're not going to get away with this, release my daughter. And then we cut to black, and hear a gunshot. So we're like, oh, what happened? So we get to the next scene, which is earlier that day, it says on the screen.
Yeah, and then like 5 seconds later, we jump to like 30 days earlier too. So we are already kind of unstuck in time.
Yes.
So when Meredith says Boondock Saints, she means Sean Patrick Flannery and not Norman Reedus. So Sean Patrick Flannery, in addition to being from Boondock Saints, he was young Indiana Jones. He is in Simply Irresistible, the magical crab movie with Sarah Michelle Gellar, which is amazing.
He was also in Boondock Saints 2.
He was also in Boondock Saints 2, All Saints Day. Yes, that Meredith is right about that. I think my favorite thing about this scene, so not only are there so many nauseating quick edits, Jen watched this with me before she fell asleep during the movie, and she said, is the camera on top of a vacuum cleaner? Because it's just kind of meandering around too. It's very odd. But my favorite part of this opening scene, which again is the climax of the movie and we might be able to talk about later too, is that they're having a shootout outside the hangar and it's maybe going to be close to dusk. They get in the hangar and it's pitch black outside. Like,
yes.
They might have even done day for night in the initial outdoor scene because somebody noticed that mistake and was just like, oh, let's darken it up a little bit.
Wait, was it a mistake or was it, I don't know, the end of November and during daylight savings time?
First off, it's daylight saving time. It is neither plural nor possessive, okay? But
but it is the case where it's 4:15 and it's sort of twilight and it's 4:30 and it's pitch black.
it was not so much a case of night falling, it was night plummeting, okay? It is. But anyway, okay, let's jump back to, 30 hours earlier? It's a stupid amount of time, right?
Yeah, oh, no, they don't give they just say earlier that day in Buffalo,
earlier
New
that
York.
day, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, and they say in Buffalo, New York, even though the rest of the movie takes place out in like Oakdale or some made-up town outside
yes.
Oakside,
yes.
yeah, outside of Buffalo, New York. I guess they couldn't afford Buffalo police cars, I don't know.
Oh.
Or any police cars, really.
Okay, so we're in Buffalo, New York, in Boondock Saints. He is arriving to a coffee shop. He needs to get his morning's coffee. And we're doing some character establishments. He just quit smoking. He has a caffeine addiction. He has a war injury. And
he's got a limp.
He's making a coffee stop on his way to a doctor appointment. We don't know what kind of doctor yet. And the coffee machine prompts a PTSD flashback.
Yeah, why?
It wasn't even like an espresso machine that's loud. It was just the carafe where you pull the plastic lever and it pours coffee into a soft cup. And this was the noise that prompted it. So I think maybe the coffee shop didn't have an espresso maker, or maybe nobody on set knew how to operate the noisy machine.
Maybe. It was very odd. That's like his big character trait is that he has PTSD and he's got a limp. And it really doesn't have like an arc or a payoff or anything like that. But I mean, I guess in theory it's a nice touch because Christopher Ray is actually he's a Navy guy. He served for, I don't know, like 8 years or something like that. And then he worked as a government contractor. And I think Fred Olin Ray was also in the Navy, or he was in the armed forces of some kind. But yeah. So is this when we actually see the full flashback, or do we kind of piece it out?
We see more of the story when he's actually talking about his experience, because the doctor he's going to is a therapist. So he eventually tells the therapist what happened.
Yeah. Okay. So we can just jump right into that flashback then.
Great. The incident that caused his PTSD was oh gosh, I don't even know if they said. I'm guessing Army, and he was with his team and they're in the field.
If you've ever driven past Buffalo, this is a familiar spot.
Oh, is it?
This is Silo City.
Okay.
So this is a collection of abandoned grain elevators that were built in like the 1900s. I think this particular section was built in like 1920 something.
Cool.
That were just abandoned in the 60s after a change in shipping routes and is now used as kind of like a natural space and like cultural center and stuff like that. These are like grain silos. They're some of the biggest grain elevators that have ever been built. And I was like, for the life of me, I was like, what is this place supposed to be?
Well, for my untrained eyes, like I didn't recognize it at all. It just looked like an abandoned building. And given that we've got 6 or so soldiers walking around armed, scouting it out, it looks like they're somewhere overseas looking for terrorists. It didn't really strike me as grain silos. It just looked abandoned structure number 3 is what it looked like.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So they're doing a sweep, and one of them trips up an explosive device. So there's an explosion where Boondock Saints gets injured and trapped under some debris. Like he hears terrorists come in and shoot the rest of his team dead, and he is helpless to do anything because his gun has fallen out of reach and he cannot disentangle himself from the debris. So that's what he's flashing back to when there's a loud noise.
I just wanted to mention that, they're protecting abandoned grain elevators from terrorism. So, yeah.
So meanwhile, we flash over to the local police station where we meet, I think, like 3 or so cops.
Yeah, we got 3 cops.
3 cops.
All very important characters.
Yeah,
We've got our buddy Peter Johnson, who plays a character, I only assume his name is Black Cop. He was the guy in both of our Christmas movies from season 1. He was the chef that had to learn how to do algebra in order to get into cooking school. We have other cop whose name I assume is White Cop, who is the closeted gay bully from Glee.
Okay.
Max Adler. He played a cop in the Trial of Chicago 7 too, which, Aaron Sorkin, Christopher Ray, same basic level of filmmaker. And then we have the chief himself. Do you recognize the chief? Like these guys I all recognize right away? Okay. So the chief is Michael J. White, or Michael Jai White. I'm never sure how you say it. He was the star of a superhero movie in the 90s, a little movie called Spawn, where he played Spawn.
He was Spawn? Wow.
He was Spawn, yeah. He was also a gangster in The Dark Knight, like one of the head gangsters, and he has been in like 150 like direct-to-video martial arts movies because he is like a badass martial artist. And like,
why didn't he get to show that off in this movie?
I don't know. It is so frustrating.
Whoa.
I was like, you have Mark Dacascos, who will show up later, and Michael J. White, who are like it's like a super team of direct-to-video martial artists, and there is one punchy kicky scene in the movie, and that's it. And it is such a tease.
That's a miss.
But anyway, yeah, he's the police chief, and he's in charge of this whole operation. So. Yeah.
The camera pans onto the chief of police, Purple Heart. It was clear to me that this movie was made for veterans, and they were trying to put in as many nods and Easter eggs as possible. So we now know that the chief of police is also a veteran, so the audience is meant to root for him as well.
Yeah, the Military Times did a good recap of this movie with an interview with Christopher Olin Ray that I read too. So
cool. Awesome.
This is who the movie is for, I suppose.
It has to be. Well, even before the beginning scene, there was a not a public service announcement, but like an announcement saying, if you're having suicidal thoughts, here's the veteran suicide hotline.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So they're like, they know their audience and they're trying to reach them. Okay. Now we're back to Boondock Saints. He's arriving at the VA hospital with a woman who is his wife, who is also a therapist.
Yep.
So evidently she's badgered him into seeing one of her colleagues. He is begrudgingly taking care of his mental health. They establish that they have a daughter. The daughter is having trouble at soccer practice because she went cleats up on a teammate or something. I don't know what that means.
It means, she cut somebody's leg open probably with her cleats. I assume. I'm not a soccer guy, but...
Well, I mean, it's high school sports, so people are going to get hurt, especially if you have, like, knives on your shoes. So, like, I don't see how it's a problem, but whatever. They have to, like, be good parents, and the scene is establishing that they have to have a talk with their daughter, and they're going to be good at parenting, whatever.
Yeah. This the daughter is played by somebody named Sarah Elizabeth Jensen, who it hasn't done anything particularly notable that I saw, at least. But what is notable here is that she's playing a 14-year-old.
This
what do you think? She's 25?
Yeah.
Like, I it didn't have her age on anything I saw, but I did track down her website, and it talked about college in the past tense. And this movie is 2 years old, so
grown-ass woman.
Yeah.
But okay, that's fine. She has a youthful
A youthful face, yeah. I mean, she could
Yeah,
be a Disney Channel. Like sometimes they get these 38-year-olds to play 20-year-olds in these
they
things.
totally. It's fine. It's fine.
Oh
There's an
yeah,
amusing scene where she's holding up a bag of gummy bears, just like
yeah.
right in the middle of her chest. Like, look at my gummy bears. It's
It's like,
funny. It's
I am a child. Yeah, and then Mrs. Boondock Saints slash psychiatrist lady. She is an actor named Gina Holden, who's one of these people that has a career because she has a symmetrical face and lives in British Columbia. Her entire IMDb profile is basically sequels,
Oh no.
usually horror sequels. Like she has a small part in Final Destination 3, or she doesn't even get like an interesting death. She is in Saw 3D. She is in The Butterfly Effect 2, which I reviewed years ago for The Inside Pulse, and it is not a good movie. And she is in everybody's favorite horror movie sequel, Alien vs. Predator Requiem, which is just the cheapest thing you can do with two intellectual properties.
So we're at the VA hospital, and I don't know if you have any insight into this, but my dad spent years going to a VA hospital, and although I don't remember the name of that hospital, I'm pretty sure it wasn't VA followed by a number. So
Okay,
it just
I'm
makes
typing-
like the hospital not real to me. Do you know?
To sound like Precinct 13. Although maybe it's like public schools, how some of them are named like PS 238 and some of them are named like Millard Fillmore High.
I didn't know that some schools were given numbers.
Yeah, that's like a New York City thing. I think they all have numbers.
Oh, okay. We're at the venue. It's VA-33.
And it's definitely a veterans hospital that is fully functioning right now. Do they address why everything is shut down and like under construction and terrible? Because
Not at
I
all.
know why, but I'm going to hold off till the end.
Oh. All right. A couple of things that become important later on. Boondock Saints and his wife, Mrs. Boondock Saints, are arriving into the hospital. Mrs. Boondock Saints works at the hospital, so she doesn't have to do any special sign-in, but Boondock Saints does, and the person who works at the front desk, her character name is Miss Wanda. She's a total fucking bitch about signing in.
Yeah, she's a real hard ass about it. Yeah.
Yeah, like unnecessarily so. So she makes him sign in, and he's being a good sport about it. So it just like seems like weird and off-putting, but it's important later.
Yeah.
And point number 2 is that the elevators are out of order, and the janitor is putting up a sign saying that the elevators are out of order. We know that this is a big deal because Anne talks to the janitor, and she's like, "This is a hospital. We can't afford to have our elevators out of order." And just like, why are you yelling at the janitor?
Yeah, he didn't do it.
And he can't fix it.
Also, it's one of the many scenes where she gives a terrible line reading. Like, she does not give a good performance in this movie. Like, no. Yeah, Wanda is given a lot of personality and then killed off later. She's not an actor who's really done much of anything, but it really feels like she's going to be an important character later and then just isn't. So
Yeah, just nothing. Just nothing. She gave it her all. Like, the directions were clearly be a bitch about this, and she delivered.
yeah. Good job, Wanda. We like you.
Yeah, I have encountered people like that in the wild, acting just like that. Very true to life. Excellent job. No notes.
Yeah.
Well, now is when we jump back to 21 days earlier.
Oh yeah, it's time for a flashback. We're only in a flashback right now, so we'll do a flashback again.
Yes, exactly. Like, this is an episode of Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Okay, so 21 days earlier, we're in a warehouse. It's a torture situation. A soldier named Jonathan Fergozzi is being tortured for information by Nicolas Cage's little boy. And we know that it's Nicolas Cage's little boy because he's got the crazy eyes.
Yeah, that is a Weston Cage Coppola. He mostly forms black metal bands and
really?
occasionally shows up as an actor, usually in Nicolas Cage movies. He does not have the presence to pull off the villain part in this movie and is not very good.
Well, he had a Russian accent?
To me, it sounded like he was doing a Russian accent by imitating John Malkovich's accent in Rounders.
Okay.
Give that man his money. So
Sure. He was consistent. It was that same accent throughout the whole thing. So points for that. Points for using his eyes to good effect.
It's like he's just a goofball. He looks like, you got this kid from high school to be in your play who's really trying his all, but he's never acted before and doesn't seem to know what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they torture Vergosi, who is not very important, but he's kind of a driving force in this movie too, who is played by a guy named Paul Spital, who we saw in Christmas in Vermont. He was one of the outerwear employees in that. Yeah. Like a minor part, but
Okay.
pretty much every outerwear employee shows up in this movie at some point, I feel.
And I thought I was doing so well by having recognized Boondock Saints and Nicolas Cage's son.
I can't believe you recognize Nicolas Cage's son. That is impressive, Meredith. You just really know Nicolas Cage.
Frank tipped me off. We were watching the movie together, and usually I just kind of gloss over the credits because, what do I know anyway? And then Frank clocked the Cage Coppola, and he looked it up.
Yeah.
But then when I knew what I was looking for, I was like, that's his eyes. Back to our torture scene in the warehouse. We got Nicolas Cage's son. And then also we see the janitor. So we're like, oh, the janitor is somebody to be suspicious of because the janitor is another torturer. And we also get the motivation. So why is Nicolas Cage's son angry? And why is he torturing Jonathan Vergosi? Nicolas Cage's son's brother has been kidnapped, and he wants to know who gave the order to kidnap this guy. And through the torture, we learn that it is a person named General Welch, like Welch's grape juice. General Welch gave the order.
So henchman number 1 is Eric, right? He's the guy that's the janitor?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think that's the guy that's complaining all the time, like, why do we have to call them phases and all that other stuff?
He was whiny. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that is a guy named Richard Gabai or Gabby or something like that. He was in Critical Mass and Dinosaur Island and a bunch of 80s movies and stuff like that. But yeah, we've seen him before on the podcast, but this is, I think, the biggest part we've seen him in yet.
He did seem a little familiar, but it didn't bother me. I was like, he could be familiar in a way that he looks like an adult white man. I don't know.
Yeah, generic white guy, middle-aged.
Yeah, totally. Everybody I know in the world. Okay. At this point in the movie, we've already discussed this, but Boondock Saints is now talking about the incidents that caused his PTSD. Boondock Saints and Anne, they'd set up where they were going to have lunch that day. So it was going to be after Boondock Saints' appointment. Anne has a lunch break, and they were going to go get their daughter from soccer practice or something and have lunch and have a conversation with her. This cannot happen because a red, quote unquote, appointment just showed up on Anne's books. And that means there's a high priority, top brass person who's coming in, last minute appointment. There is no saying no. She has to make herself available. So she communicates this to her husband and, whatever. Their schedules are all out of whack. That's the whole point of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we do something that's a Fred Olen Ray hallmark. We just randomly flash to a completely different scene to set something else up out of nowhere. And that thing is Mrs. Welch is getting kidnapped from a parking lot. And Mrs. Welch was in at least one of the Christmas movies we watched.
She was in the Christmas movie we just watched, yeah. She was the star of Christmas in Vermont. So, yeah, she was Abigail Hawke.
Yes.
And she gets kidnapped. They point a gun at her and say, hey, climb into the trunk. And she's like, oh, okay. Doesn't even seem worried about it or anything.
Unflappable. The perfect military wife.
I mean, yeah, all those years of doing Blue Bloods, I mean, she is just calm and collected during all of this. So exactly. She's no damsel in distress. She's like, yeah, I was going to get in this trunk anyway. Fuck you. So.
All right, so that random scene is random. And now we come back to the hospital. And I recognize some more people here. You're going to be very excited and proud of me.
I'm so excited.
Okay. All right. So because the elevators are out of order, some folks who work at the hospital have called the elevator repair technicians. Like any building like this, you've got some folks on speed dial. So there's a van, and it's the elevator repair company's van, but there's anywhere between 5 and 12 guys and one lady who have taken over the van They've
Yeah.
killed the elevator repair technician. They are all
R.I.P.
disguised as the elevator repair technician, even though there's a bazillion of them.
Yep.
And now that's how they're infiltrating the hospital, because they've been called in. And so now they're the hospital's expecting them.
Now they've got a cover. Yeah.
Yeah,
And they've got
exactly.
12 guys coming in costume for no reason. Like, so the villain's plan is to get the location of where his brother is being held by the government. And he does this by holding an entire hospital hostage and then saying, hey, if you don't cooperate with me, I'll kill your wife, who we also have taken hostage. Why does he need to take the hospital hostage then? Is it just for the extra money? I don't...
Well, no, because we're doing a Die Hard.
Yeah, I mean, I know why, in terms of, so the movie can happen is the reason here.
Yeah.
It was so, like, they needed one guy to kidnap the general's wife.
Yeah.
And less than that to kidnap the general's daughter, who is kidnapped off screen and just held in that airplane hangar.
Yeah.
So, the fuck? You don't need a team of 15 guys. Like, your budget is out of control here, because you got to get a fake ThyssenKrupp elevator repair van, and you've got to get, like, at least one professional wrestler to help you out.
One of the, like, most bizarre things is that when it's all said and done, there are as many elevator repair techs as there are people in that hospital.
Yes. It's a full working hospital with... okay, so how many people are actually in the hospital working when it gets taken over? There is front desk lady. There is Mrs. Boondock Saints.
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Boondock Saints' assistant.
Oh, right. Mrs. Boondock Saints' assistant, who is our good friend Katie Schneider, Anne, who's, again, has the best Buffalo accent in the world, and I love it. So, and that, I think, yeah, so there's 3 people and, like, 8 patients, and that's it, in this giant hospital that has elevators and presumably more than 2 floors.
Yeah, it doesn't make any damn sense.
No. But anyway, you said you would recognize some people. Who did you recognize here, Meredith?
Well, the driver of the van is Rob Van Dam.
Yeah, of course he drives a van. That's his middle name.
And he's like, his whole role is like chirping at the rest of them on the walkie and like making jokes. And you're like, are you in a terrorist situation or are you a comedian?
Hold on. We have Michael J. White. We have Mark Dacascos. We have RVD, who has been in a bunch of martial arts movies. Like, he was in Blood Moon, which is one of the greatest martial arts movies of all time that we watched. So who does RVD get to fight in this movie, Meredith?
The gas pedal?
Yeah, he sits in the van the entire movie and just makes observations. And still, he might be the best part of the movie.
Okay, there was an entire like section where it's clear that it was trying to be funny and Rob Van Dam was the only funny one.
Yeah, because Eric was just like, oh, why do we have to have phases? And it just felt forced. But it really just felt like they pointed a camera at RVD and they were just like, hey, say some stuff.
So he's just like in the van the entire time, you're right. Other guys come in and kill Miss Wanda and take over her role as front desk security. So that's where the Die Hard really comes in. Yeah. There's some quipping about this. She trips the silent alarm. So now the cops are back in play. They call and they're like, is everything fine? Larry, the front desk guy now, he's like, yeah, everything's fine. Here's the code. It's fine. Nobody cares that Miss Wanda was shot to death. Like, nobody heard it.
Nobody
in the VA hospital, where apparently the only service is therapy for PTSD, is bothered that there was just a gunshot in the lobby.
Also no blood pretty much anywhere. Like, this is one of those movies where, you know, it doesn't have like these bloodless whatever, like people get shot and fall down. They've got like little blood spots and stuff like that. But like, people are getting shot in the head all the time, and there's like no blood on the floor or splatter or spatter or anything. It's very odd.
Yeah, that was a budget.
Yeah, you can't mess up this clearly still working hospital with blood on the floor.
Right.
Like there are spray painted signs on walls and stuff like that with arrows just to show you your way around this abandoned hospital. Like. But I mean, they covered up well by having Xerox pieces of paper taped all over the place to show you like official room names and that sort of thing. So
yeah, that's all true. And So they're going around. They like kill one of the other doctors, take her access badge, blah blah blah.
Well, yeah, they kill Boondock Saint's psychiatrist.
Oh yeah, and take her badge, so he knows her name and everything.
Yeah, because he sees them walk in and sees that, hey, that's my psychiatrist badge, so he knows something's going on.
Something's up. And then Larry, who's replaced Miss Wanda, is not being a hard ass, and he's just like, his spidey sense is tingling that something is wrong. He can't have lunch with his wife, so he's like still there, but kind of leaving. And he's like gonna take his daughter and like bring her back to soccer practice so she can like go cleats up again. I don't know. Anyway, like because his spidey sense is tingling, he calls the cops as soon as he leaves the hospital, and he's like, something's wrong. And the cops dismiss him because they're like, where are you? Are you a patient at the hospital? Like, what's your deal? They make it pretty clear that they're discounting his opinion because they perhaps frequently get crank calls from paranoid veterans who think that they're seeing signs of disorder when in fact they're overreacting. Yeah. So that's why the police are not really being responsive.
Okay, but it's dumb as hell because we show Spawn himself, Mr. Spawn, get a call from the FBI saying like, hey, be on the lookout for anything suspicious that might happen. Literally in the same scene. Then he gets the call from Boondock Saints. It's like, hey, suspicious things are happening. And he's like, no, they're not. Fuck off. It makes him seem like an idiot and terrible at his job.
Yeah.
The next phone call is my favorite phone call, though, where they clearly... I'm just going to jump ahead to it because nothing in this movie fucking matters. Yeah. He calls up the police station again, Boondock Saints does, and he talks to Peter Johnson. You know, he talks to a Christmas chef.
Yes.
And Spawn is also on the line. They just edited together two phone conversations. Like the editor couldn't tell the two black characters apart. It was so fucking weird. Because he's talking I thought
it was just like they're all nosy and they've been getting a bunch of calls from this hospital and it's just been the one guy and now it's like the only thing that's happening in their day. So they're all just like picking up all the receivers and listening. And
they're in this giant police station too. It looks big and there are 3 cops.
Sleepy Oakside.
But yeah, no, it like, so he calls, like Peter Johnson picks up the phone, talks to him. He says it like, Boondock says something else, then Spawn says something back to him, and then he says something else, and then Peter Johnson says something back to him, and then he talks again, and then it's Spawn again. It's like, what the fuck is happening? Am I going crazy?
Yeah. It was dumb as fuck.
So I know that the original cut of this movie was 10 minutes longer, and they cut it down to be closer to 90 minutes. And I'm assuming one of the telephone conversations got cut and smushed into 2 conversations. There's another thing that I think might be cut out of the movie that I'll talk about at the end, but maybe they just forgot.
Something that's happening now that like everything is in play is Nicolas Cage's son has shown up to the hospital. The hospital is like more or less secured. Everybody who's in the hospital is hostages, or they've rounded them all up into one room. We've got and except for General Welch and Anne, because they're trying to like keep it quiet from them as long as possible until they have the entire situation secured. So they secure the situation. A couple of patients get killed.
Why is General Welch there? He's got PTSD too.
Well, he is there because he's forced to be there. Whoever is in charge, whoever is the boss of him, has required that he get an evaluation to see if he is still fit for duty, to see if he has PTSD, I guess.
Who's the boss of a general? The president?
No.
You think they'd have somebody come to the important general and have it be near a military base, as opposed to him going out to a fake suburb of Buffalo to go visit this lady. So you are not recognizing the general at all, I'm assuming.
No. Nope.
The general has shown up in at least 2 of our movies.
What?
He was our social media expert in Christmas in Vermont.
No, he was not.
Yeah, no, he had like different hair then. He was also in...
How long ago was Christmas in Vermont? He was substantially older in this movie.
Yeah, Christmas in Vermont was 2016. This movie came out in 2021, but must have been filmed before June of 2020 because one of the actors in it has died in 2020. based on like the snow and everything around, I'm assuming it's filmed about January of 2020. That's my guess. I didn't get a confirmation online. He was also in Sniper Special Ops because sure, why not? But that guy's name is Gerald Webb. We've seen him before. We'll probably see him again.
He's telling a story of his emotional damage to Anne, and his story is that he gave the order for some soldiers to do something which resulted in Jonathan Fregosi being kidnapped and tortured and ultimately killed. So that's how Jonathan Fregosi comes back into this. General Welch says, like, I feel really bad about it. His therapist, Anne, is like, yeah, that's such a bummer, but you're talking about your feelings, and that's really good. So that's a really positive sign. I think you're fit for duty. And this is all, like, clearly not for his character development. It's for the audience of veterans.
Yeah.
Encouraging them to get help and talk about their feelings. Right.
Now, I don't remember this 100%, but according to IMDb, the therapist's name is Jen, and Anne is the name of the secretary.
Oh, oops.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter that much. I mean, her name is Mrs. Boondock Saints.
Mrs. Boondock Saints, yes.
And then, yeah, Anne is, of course, Katie Schneider.
Katie.
And, yeah. IMDb lists front desk ginger guy as Max instead of Larry. You were calling him Larry?
Yeah, I think Larry was his cover name.
Oh, okay. But his real name is Max. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely had a lot of trouble with, because there's too many characters, and
there's so many characters.
And I've been burned by Fred Olen Ray movies where like everybody's got a name and it never matters. And I went into this and I'm just gonna have a good time. We're doing a Die Hard. There's 15 bad guys. Okay, all right. But yes. Meanwhile, Boondock Saints is a loose cannon in the hospital. He is not part of the hostage group. The bad guys are aware that somebody is messing things up. They are not. They don't recognize that it's that specific guy. And so we get a couple of fight scenes. In one of these fight scenes, Boondock Saints' knee gets like messed up. So we diverge from Die Hard briefly to do a Lethal Weapon when Boondock Saints puts his knee back into place.
Yeah, I thought he might have had a prosthetic leg, but I don't know.
That wasn't established.
Yeah, I don't think they could afford that.
Oh, I guess that would make sense if it was, given like how that was filmed, but it's not really established in the movie. And then right after, now he's got a gun. Ho, ho, ho. He's walking around with no problem. So the whole establishing on like when he was in the coffee shop and he could like barely walk, and then the flashback where his leg was super fucked up in the explosion. No, now that he's got a gun, he's fine.
In wrestling, it's called selling. And they tell the kids to slow down and sell more and stop doing all these moves. There's no selling. Like, that's what makes Die Hard good, is that, our hero actually gets hurt. His feet are bloody. Everything. You feel the pain of it. Like, everything takes a toll on him. And Boondock Saints seems to get more powerful as the movie progresses.
Which I don't know if that was a choice or it was just like an afterthought or what was going on. But like, given that like the movie on the surface of it is trying to give a really positive message to veterans, this part where Boondock Saints sees something is correct in assuming that it's like the worst case scenario, and then can overcome all sorts of injuries and fight like he's never been injured and he's 25 years old, gives the opposite message.
Yeah. I think it's just supposed to be like inspirational. You can still do it sort of in that way, but yeah, it's kind of a conflicting. It's murky at best.
I was really put off by the like, it's paranoia, but he was right, especially for this specific audience. Because I don't know if I ever told you, but like my dad had the paranoia and it was not good.
Yeah, it's probably for the best he didn't have a gun in a hospital running around.
But yeah, so that's a gripe that I have with the movie, but that means Boondock Saints is now our badass.
Yeah. He shoots a big dumb guy. There's big dumb terrorist who has kind of a frenemy relationship with a lady terrorist whose main job in the movie seems to be showing her off her hip bones.
Yeah, it's cold. We've had establishing shots where everybody's in a coat and there's snow on the ground. And as soon as she gets inside, off comes the janitor costume or elevator repair tech costume, and out comes her abs. And there's like, okay.
Yeah. She's like got the midriff and the very low hanging jeans. That's Brittany Underwood as V. She did a bunch of One Life to Live basically. So she's a soap person. So
no, she mostly spends her time working out, and it shows.
Yeah, good for her.
All right, so now we're where are we?
Yeah, so there's just a bunch of like random encounters. I will say this, I don't think anybody in the movie is as good as Treat Williams was in Critical Mass, but the movie is more interesting than Critical Mass because they at least mix up the like walking in hallways and randomly shooting people scenes. And there's actually living hostages, so there is a little bit of a sense of urgency and stuff like that. I guess we have to talk about the people waiting outside of an office for some reason, who include another one of our celebrities here. Again, another person who I thought was going to be a bigger part of the movie, and then dies by stupid. So
yes, suicide by stupid is what it is. At this point in the movie, everybody's in the hospital. All of our characters that we want to be in the hospital are in there, and the terrorists have, to their satisfaction, secured the hospital. So now they're going to go after General Welch, and General Welch is having his therapy session behind a guarded door. There's a couple of soldier Marines, maybe? They're guarding the door.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the terrorists come up and they're like, bam, shoot the 2 guards immediately. So now everybody who's just been sitting outside of that office, and they'd been like flirting with the soldiers, saying like, we're all veterans, like, who would you date? You know, like attempted humor. Now they're upset. They're like, what is going on? And one of them gets up and runs. So who is she? Because I recognized her, but I couldn't place her.
Okay, so first off, we have to establish that an actor who's mostly a stunt man, the Filipino guy, put plastic explosives on all the doors, and everybody's warned about this, and this is why this is running as a bad idea. But that very important character is played by Rachel True, and if you don't know who Rachel True is, she is the other one from The Craft.
Oh.
Okay, yeah.
Oh,
yeah, we have
Christ.
Main Girl in The Craft. We have Feruza from The Craft. We have the one from like the Fox
Scream.
team.
Scream from The Craft.
Oh, yeah, Nev Campbell's in it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's the woman of color. That's Rachel True, and that is her big part. This is what she's doing now, I guess, where she has a bit part in a Fred Olen Ray Son movie where she runs, is told, don't run out that door, and then she explodes. I think she kills Filipino stuntman guy, too, even though he's farther away from the door than Boondock Saints. And Boondock Saints is fine.
Boondock Saints was around a corner, and a Filipino guy said, if you go through that door, you'll kill us both. So he had to die.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise he'd be a liar, which is worse.
He's been given the gift of prophecy, and it had to happen.
Yeah.
But I could see how that was, like, made sense for the character, because she's very upset. She's a veteran as well, and it seems like she made a choice of like she's highly fucking upset, and she doesn't want to face like whatever the terrorists are gonna do, so she's chosen her death, and her death is by going through the rigged door and explosion.
And this is a way for Rachel True to get a paycheck and only work for half a day.
She was acting the hell out of it.
Yeah, she was.
Anyway,
she was
that's
fine.
like part of the uncanny valley of this movie. I'm just like, yeah, actors are acting, and yet I don't like this movie. Like, I don't get it. Anyway, okay. All right, so that happens. And Boondock Saints has the ringing in his ears, and his PTSD has been triggered because it's a bomb blast. He's having to overcome his trauma again.
During all of this, Max the Ginger is sitting at the front desk, even though all of the doors are wired to explode. He's just there to maybe answer the phone in case the cops call. I don't really know, but he's like full on in disguise and in character for no reason. Just sitting by explosives because that's what his role in this heist was.
Yeah, he was like, hey, aren't those going to like kill me if they're triggered? And the other guy's like, don't worry about it. And she's like,
yeah.
Well then leave, dude, because like you're expendable. This is a Die Hard. Just leave. Yeah. And he does not leave.
What they put on the door to rig the door, like, they have whatever Play-Doh or whatever fake C4 they got in wires. But the sensors are just the sensors that are used in my mom's home alarm system. Like it's not Simply Safe, but it's one of those little white peggy things that just stick on the one side of the window and the other side of the window, so that when you open it, the sensor separates a little bit and it goes, window open. Beep, beep, beep. So I mean, it was a solid $30 investment for them to get these props. Is all I'm saying.
Well, the explosion was real, I think, right? Was that a CGI explosion?
it didn't strike me one way or the other, honestly.
Okay. Well, it fooled me. And, not that that's saying anything, but the explosion gets the attention of the police because that had been viewable from outside the hospital. People are like, wow, what's going on? And so an officer arrives, not the chief of police, the other guy.
Yeah.
And he gets out of his car. He's unaware of the explosion. He was just like showing up for...
Yeah, nobody called him.
Yeah. So he gets out of the car. He's immediately shot in like the shoulder or something. And then he calls his colleagues on the radio. He's like, get down here. Bad shit's happening. Now everybody's paying attention. We got the Oakside police is paying attention and the FBI is now paying attention. And the terrorists now take advantage of this to make their demands. They say, we have all these hostages. We want $50 million, a bus ride to the hangar, and we want a 747 to make our escape.
Yeah. They want a bus ride to the hangar where we currently have the general's daughter and wife kidnapped, but don't pay attention to that. R.I.P. Chris Chef, who was our cop that died right there.
Wait, did he die?
Yeah, no, he totally got killed there.
Oh, I thought he showed up at... Oh, it was the other cop at the end. Okay, all right. Oh, yeah, R.I.P. guy. Then something happened, and I need your take on this, Michael, because I was typing up some notes. I was just like, oh, right, okay, 50 million, a bus ride, this is probably going to be important, blah, blah, blah. And then I look up, and then a helicopter is shot down and crashes next to the hospital building, and I don't understand why.
I think Michael J. White might say something about like, hey, do we still have something and something? And a kid from Glee is like, yeah. And then automatically there's a helicopter there with no one that we know inside it. But he shows up outside the window, is immediately shot down, and that scene's over.
Okay.
Perfect movie. No notes.
Helicopter. All right. Good. Yeah. Okay. Well. There's a little bit of jockeying between the police and the FBI, who's in charge, who has jurisdiction. Just watch Die Hard. It's a better scene. And in the hospital, Boondock Saints is captured by the woman terrorist, V. And she does not recognize him because nobody's had eyes on him. So she corrals him, brings him back to the big group of hostages.
I think it's more complicated than that, though, because somebody tries to take him first, and he grabs a lab coat and pretends to be a doctor, and that turns sideways, so he kills that guard. But then 5 seconds later, he intentionally gets kidnapped by V, pretending to be that same doctor. His cover story is like, I was napping. What happened? I'm a doctor, even though he's not dressed like a doctor or anything like that. He just has a lab coat in his hand.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, his plan was he called up Spawn because they had his cell phone number still. And they were just having open phone conversations with terrorists all around because that's also how Critical Mass worked. This is it's as much a remake of Critical Mass as it is anything else. And his plan was to have the camera on his phone get kidnapped so he can show everybody what was happening in the kidnap situation. And luckily, they were taken to the same room as the general. And the general at that time was being shown where his wife and daughter were being kidnapped, also on a phone. So we have a phone camera taking video of another phone camera. And that's enough for FBI hair plugs guy to say, I know that location. And then 5 seconds later, they murder the terrorist holding both of the wife and the daughter. And that's done. That's resolved.
I mean, that's the most true to life thing that I've ever heard.
Am I crazy? This is exactly what happened to this movie, right?
That's exactly what happened. It really is a testament to the quality of phone cameras and the clarity of the screens.
I mean, so clear, because you can just, my phone is always in focus. I never have any trouble. I can just keep it in my pocket and not have to tap the screen multiple times to say what to focus on.
Sound quality is stellar.
Stellar. And really, this is on V. Because V, they made sure that none of the other hostages had cell phones. They didn't check this guy for a cell phone or the guns he brought in because he secretly snuck guns to some of the other veterans there.
Yes.
Or a gun, maybe. I don't know.
One other, yeah.
Yeah.
So he has a knife and a gun and he makes nodding. Eyes at the other guy. Yeah.
Oh, shit, that was a thing, too. The very first guy he attacked, he didn't shoot him. Big dumb guy who is blonde woman's frenemy. Like, he's hiding with a knife behind a door, and,
Oh,
like, the
yes.
guy comes in and doesn't see him, but then he makes a noise, so the guy comes back, and
Mhm.
Boondock Saints attacks him from behind, had a knife in his hand, and puts him in a chokehold, and the knife isn't there anymore. Like, it was like, was he supposed to stab him? Did we miss a scene or something like that? It was so weird. And then he ends up just like, I think he ends up stabbing him in the belly or in the chest or something like that, and which gives us this whole weird subplot where V really cares a lot about the life of this guy she hated earlier in the scene. It really humanized the terrorists in a weird way.
Yes.
And I think that was their attempt at doing a Die Hard, because there was the whole, like, John McClane killed my brother, so I'm going to fuck him up.
Yes.
But they didn't even do that right, because V doesn't get revenge against Boondock Saints. She just gets randomly shot at the end of the movie.
Yes.
What the fuck?
Complete waste of a lifetime of working out, honestly.
She could have had that donut. She could have had so many donuts in it.
The goal was to get Boondock Saints in the room with Nicolas Cage's son and General Welch so that they could resolve the terrorist situation with Mrs. Welch and the daughter. It didn't make any sense. But
yeah, so they resolved the terrorist situation with the daughter and the wife.
Mm-hmm.
And the one guy has one gun, and they all kind of have this shootout thing.
Yeah.
And I could not tell you who gets shot or anybody who dies in this scene. All the important characters that we know are, like, none of the hostages are hurt at all, I don't think. Maybe one of them gets shot? I don't know. But all of the important bad guys end up in the van with Rob Van Dam, and Rob Van Dam was like, hey, is this all that's left?
And there's still like 15 of them.
Yeah, I mean, it might be as few as 6, but yeah.
There's so many. But, okay, so Nicolas Cage's son, I think he gets, like, grazed in the shoulder. He's enraged because his hostage situation has fallen apart. General Welch has indicated that Nicolas Cage's son's brother is dead. And he's like, you better hope my brother's not dead. Blah, 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 blah. He knows he's not getting his $50 million. He can't, like, he doesn't have the information he wanted about his brother. So they're like, okay, we got to escape, because they're, like, the other veterans are shooting and whatever. Like, we're out. They get in the van. Rob Van Dam, like, it's his time to shine. He starts driving. And Boondock Saints starts going after them. The 2 remaining cops are like, get that guy with the gun. And he's like, no, I'm Boondock Saints. So they are like, oh, yeah, you're the guy we've been talking on the phone with. They hop in his truck, like the 2 cops in Boondock Saints' truck.
Yeah, because they can't afford a cop car in this movie. When Chef Christmas shows up, he just drives up in, like, a random vehicle. Yeah. And then when it's like the FBI and the cops arguing during the hostage crisis, like in the towards the beginning of the third act of the movie, they have, like, one vehicle in the background that looks like it might be from a forest ranger, but otherwise it's just like a black SUV is all they've got. But anyway, they chase the bad guys.
They're going to the airport.
Yeah, they know exactly where they're going. And Spawn says, hey, I know a shortcut. Turn this way. How dumb are the criminals, first off, that they would go to the location that they had announced that they were going to go to? Nothing is really thought through beyond like surface level in this movie, and that's what makes it beautiful.
Well, okay, so as the criminals were getting into their van, this is where Boondock Saints' daughter shows up again, because the entire movie she's been sitting in the car. Yeah.
She and Rob Van Dam have been waiting in the cars the whole time, and then at that point she decides, my phone is dead. They checked her phone at the beginning of the movie, and she had 76%. She was just going to sit in the car and wait this out. Somehow she blew through her entire phone's battery and decides to get out of the car for no reason, just as the moment that all the terrorists are out, and they kidnap her randomly.
Grab that kid.
Like, because it seems like there was going to be moments of tension, like in a certain movie named Die Hard, where they realize that, hey, the guy that's causing all this trouble, we have his wife hostage right now. But no, that's never revealed. No one even knows that. It's almost there, but
it's almost a Die Hard. Yeah.
It's the beauty in the imperfections of the Die Hard here that really make it amazing.
All right, now we're back to the beginning of the movie.
We are back to a shootout at dusk that immediately turns into pitch black midnight in the airplane hangar.
Nicolas Cage's son has Boondock Saints' daughter, and is like, I was checked out by this time. It's just like,
no. This is very important because what happens is they both arrived at the airport hangar at about the same time. There is a shootout where all the terrorists except for 2 or 3 get shot and killed.
Yeah.
And our cops get shot but are fine. Glee gets shot in the leg, and I think Spawn gets shot in the shoulder. It's just the slow chase between the head terrorists. It might be, what the fuck is his name? Eric and Nicolas Cage's son that have the daughter.
Yeah.
So then there's a standoff where, if I remember correctly, he just shoots Nicolas Cage's son, and then Spawn shoots Eric, and then the movie's over.
That's it.
There's no
end.
Why did we show that scene at the beginning of the movie? There's no need for it other than a promise of like there's going to be a shootout at an airplane hangar. And also, I was not fully checked out at this point because I enjoy the level of insanity of this movie. Rob Van Dam, nothing happens to him. He's still sitting in the van to this very day. Like, he just fell out of the movie. Like,
that's right. Where did he go?
No, yeah, he did not get shot. He's like, I'm not putting on a squib. No, fuck that. I'm going to sit in the van.
He got away.
He got away.
Sequel.
Rob Van Dam, Assault on VA-33. Oh my god. Yeah, and is there an epilogue? I don't think there's an epilogue. It pretty much just ends right there.
No, that was the end. But you said you knew why the hospital was half abandoned. What
this
was the
is
deal?
true. So if you were to look at that hospital, it doesn't look like a VA, right?
It looked like a hospital. I don't know that
it does look like a hospital, and it is a hospital. If you look at the borders and stuff like that, it has like kind of like cartoony drawings. And it was clear to me that this is a children's hospital.
Oh.
So what happened was Buffalo, and I think it was called the Women and Children's Hospital of Buffalo, closed in 2017 because a bigger company bought it out and built a new location, a new fancy location around that time, because there's always a lot of medical stuff happening in Buffalo around this time. But that building had been around for like 100 years. For most of its time, it was known as Buffalo Children's Hospital or the Children's Hospital on Bryant Street or the Children's Hospital of Buffalo. And they added women in like 2010 or something like that. But I know it specifically as Buffalo Children's Hospital because that is what it says on my birth certificate.
Oh my god!
That is literally my birthplace where Boondock Saints is attacking Nicolas Cage's son.
Oh, that's incredible. They might have filmed
yes.
the room where you were born.
Yeah, so
that could have been where General Welch was having his therapy session.
I felt like they were walking over my grave the entire time. It's,
That's so cool.
So, yeah, the only other note I have about this movie is that at least Jerry, who is one of the hostages going through his, PTSD VA treatment, is an actual Marine. So I think they might have filled out some of the cast with, that sort of situation.
Nice.
FBI hair plugs guy is a guy named Frank Rossi, who is an acting coach, and he worked on Christmas in Vermont as the acting coach for Paul Spital, who was Officer Fregosi. So, yeah. I have mentioned the name Mark Dacascos 15 times, but we have not talked about what he did in the movie.
Yeah, what did he do in the movie?
So Mark Dacascos, who is another one of these guys who's done 100 DTV movies, like the movie Drive with Kadeem Harrison, who was Dwayne Wayne on A Different World. He is also, Mark Dacascos is the chairman of Iron Chef America. He was also in, do you know the movie Only the Strong?
No.
It's from 1991. You know how there are movies where a teacher goes into a tough school and has to battle the gangs?
Yeah.
This is one of those movies, except in this one, he battles the gangs by doing capoeira, the Brazilian
cool.
martial arts.
Awesome. Love it.
So yeah, Mark Dacascos he's also in John Wick movies. I think he's in he might be on 2, 3, and 4. I don't even know.
Was he the guy on the roof sniper in this movie?
He was the guy, yeah. So there was a guy on the roof who was a sniper who was sitting up there by himself because I guess he had other things to do and didn't want to film a lot of scenes with other people because he doesn't really interact with any characters in the movie.
Nope, not at all.
Except for Eventually, they're like, hey, we have a problem. Can you get down here? And he's like, okay, it'll cost you more money. And instead of taking a gun, he takes his machete,
Yeah.
immediately finds Boondock Saints. And they get into a kung fu fight, which is kind of awesome. It is the only martial arts scene in the movie, which is a shame because you've got so many people that can do it. Even Sean Patrick Flannery, he is like a 4th degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and teaches all that. But Mark Dacascos kicks ass. Like, he is like, God, he's got to be about 50 years old too. But he's doing all these cool moves. And even like Boondock Saints during the middle of the fight, he's like, wow, that was cool. Yeah, and they have a fight scene that ends after like 4 minutes with Boondock Saints shooting him in the head, and then that's the end of that.
Yeah.
It was just like 2 more fight scenes like that, you know? Cut some of the rest of this nonsense out of the movie. You can still make your 95-minute runtime, but like...
Yeah. All right. Starting with effort, what would you rate this movie?
Oh, God, this is always the hardest one. I'm going to say a solid 6 because I feel like everybody's trying at least a little bit. I don't think anybody's particularly good, but nobody's really like hanging back and just doing whatever.
Sense making?
1.5. This movie does not make as much sense as any of the Fred Olen Ray movies we've seen, and that's saying something. Because not only does the story not make any sense, but like visually and how it's edited makes it make even less sense. Like, we start off with a big continuity error. We have that phone conversation where it's suddenly between 3 people when it should be between 2. Like, none of the plans make any sense whatsoever. And people just kind of find each other randomly. Like, there's no searching in this movie except for one scene that immediately ends with them finding Boondock Saints. So, yeah.
Yep. Well, and then there's notably when the daughter gets out of the car to finally go look for Boondock Saints. She doesn't enter the hospital. She stands in front of the front doors and is like, Dad, are you there?
Total Gen Z maneuver right there. I don't know what you're talking about.
Solid. Okay. Quality/production value.
5.5. Let's say 5.5. Because we've got a lot of actual, like, famous people in it.
It looked good.
It looked, like things were in focus. Like, the gunshots looked fine. The, like, helicopter explosion out of nowhere seemed fine.
It did,
They mixed in their stock footage with the actual scenes pretty okay. They didn't, like, change aspect ratio like some other filmmakers I've seen. So, yeah.
You know, I guess my one complaint on the production value is that Mrs. General Welch was not wearing her outwear Christmas sweater.
Oh my God, that would have been a great Easter egg, right?
It really would have been, yeah. Because she was wearing kind of the equivalent sweater, but it's fine. Entertainment value, what do you think?
I want to say 7.5 for this one because this movie it approaches that Samurai Cop level of like, why is this happening? Where my brain is active. Like, I did not want to look at my phone because I wanted to know why was this happening for the entire movie. So it doesn't have that weird saggy middle that a lot of the Fred Olen Ray movies have. It is so frenetically edited into just such a pile of nonsense, but entertaining nonsense because you recognize the actors. So
yeah, absolutely. And I wonder if at least some of the actors maybe saw Christopher Olen Ray grow up and were just like proud of him that he's making the movie.
Yeah, well, the guy that I think it's the guy that plays Eric. Yeah, he's been around Fred Olen Ray his entire life, and I think he might have been the one that got Sean Patrick Flannery in this movie. It was either him. Yeah, I think that was, I want to say him, but.
Well, what movie are we going to be watching next?
We should have a special guest who is picking the movie and has not told me yet. So it'll be a surprise to everybody. And I'll poke him, and if I don't hear anything in a while, I'm going to pick something at random. Maybe we'll jump back to a kid movie, or maybe we'll do another softcore. You never know with Fred Olen Ray.
I'm looking forward to our surprise.
Yeah, me too. I hope it's a surprise. I hope it's, yeah.
Well, regardless, it's going to be a surprise to me.
Exactly.
Yay!
You're just here to catalog. You don't know what's coming next.
No idea what's happening. All right. Well, until next time.
I've been Kennedy.
And I've been Meredith. Thanks for listening. Amazing.
I'm remembering snippets from an interview I read a week ago, so I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Nothing matters.
Nothing. No, nothing. These are the taglines of Going Over Our Freds. Nothing matters, and as we said last time, everyone's a little bit funny looking.
There is a veteran-specific suicide hotline, so if you're feeling like nothing matters and you're a veteran, look up the number and give them a call.
Yeah, you are not alone. We care about you. Even if we are two of the weirdest people you've ever heard talking about stuff you don't care about, we care about you. It's the other tagline for this show.
Oh my gosh. Going Over Our Freds was created and produced by us, Michael Kennedy and Meredith Halsey.
Our theme was composed and performed by Justin Nozick. Find more music for him at Bandcamp. Search for The Plague Physicians.
Artwork by Michael Kennedy. Special thanks to everyone who helped make the season possible, including the friends and family who let us watch these movies instead of this year's Academy Award nominees. And thank you for listening.
If you'd like to hear more from us, subscribe to Going Over Our Freds on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter at Goof Podcast, and find us on Instagram at Going Over Our Freds.
This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. For questions, comments, and complaints, email us at goingoverourfreds@gmail.com.
Thanks.